Now, the comic book industry, everyone knows, is in shambles, and it has happened basically because mainstream professionals have devoted their time to calling fans every name under the sun, to call them the ist and faux terms that they can think of, and they use all these terms lightly to insult the very same people that are buying the products that allow them to continue living and sharing with their families. And there is no other example of this than Dan Slott, yes, that blob of idiocy that used to write The Amazing Spider-Man, and after that, when he started writing Iron Man and the Fantastic Four, well, was pretty much forgotten, and I suppose that he knows this quite well, because since quitting The Amazing Spider-Man, the only thing that makes the rounds in the stupid that he normally sinks himself in, that is the only thing that is actually news, like in this case when he dares say that the only reason that the superheroes that we all love are white, it is because they were created during the 1930s and the 1960s. And it is not the 60s anymore. We should read other stuff. We should be content with the race swapping of our favorite characters because that's what's supposed to happen, right? Why? Because it's not the 60s anymore. Right. This imbecile thinks that during the 1960s there was no civil rights movement or anything like that. This parasitic bastard thinks that people in the past that didn't advocate for other things or for rights for other people, for, a stop to racial discrimination and all that, because the 1960s are over. Let me tell you something and let me make it clear. Race swapping is wrong in any way, shape or form, and in the case of fictional characters that create the comic book spectrum, it is wrong simply because there is one thing called the American myth, and the American myth comes from superheroes. Those pulp fiction characters that we had before 1938, Superman, Batman, all of those new characters that we had after their creation, those characters, they are the new American myth. America has no mythology of its own save for the comic book heroes that we see every month gracing the pages of the comic book industry. Just like the Greeks had their mythical heroes in Hercules and the great gods of the past with Zeus and the Olympus and all that. Just as we have the Norse gods, Odin and Thor and Freya, and all those characters living in Asgard and sharing in Valhalla, and heroes that also shared with the gods. We also have Spider-Man, and we also have the Fantastic Four and the X-Men. Now, if you asked anyone in, say, Latin America to change the Maya mythologies or the Aztec mythologies to be more inclusive, to include more, let's say, Asian people, or white people, or black people, you wouldn't be treated nicely now, would you? You would be seen with not a very kind sight, would you now? Why? Because you're trying to change an already established mythology. And if a mythology like that is respected and valued for what it is, why isn't the American mythology valued in the very same way and respected for what it is in the very same freaking way? Just because Danny here wants to change it? Just because Danny Slott here, wants to revel his fat, greasy arse into the woke? Just for that? Let me tell you that I'd rather have a skunk spray my house than to have to read Dan Slott one more time. He writes shite. So what does he fucking know about comic books in the first place? Just because he wrote Spider-Man, that doesn't qualify him to speak for Spider-Man. He wrote some of the worst stories ever. He, alongside many in the Spider-Man Brain Trust After One More Day, or whatever the shit that was that Joe Quesada did, That is the group of people that destroyed Spider-Man consistently. There is nothing in the character anymore, and you can say, oh, Nick Spencer is doing a fine job. I don't care. They have destroyed Spider-Man to the point that I just don't care anymore. There is nothing in the character for me, and there are other fans who think in the very same way. Dan Slott doesn't understand mythology. And I wouldn't want him to write anything from the beautiful Irish mythology, from the incredible Aztec mythology, from the mysterious yet rather enigmatic, compelling, interesting Japanese mythology. I don't want him to even touch things like the Monkey King, because he's going to make the Monkey King, I don't know, a Monkey Queen, because yes, Queen, we need it. Oh my god, sis, we need that. We need to change it. We need to be more inclusive. Shut the fuck up, you fucking bastards. We don't need to change any of that. The thing that we need is interesting stories. Things that people really want to read. Characters that people really want to be associated with. Characters that they can identify with. And let me tell you that skin color is not a deterrent for anyone around the world to connect with these characters. I should know, because I myself am not American, and yet I can sympathize with the likes of Spider-Man. You do not need to be of a certain ethnic extraction to identify with a certain character. The character just needs to be written properly. They need to have certain qualities and values, and that is more than enough for us to relate to them. So once again, if you wouldn't change the mythologies from Greece, or from Mexico, or from Latin America, or from Japan, or from Australia, why then would you change the American myth to appeal to everyone? Do you know how many people read the Norse sagas, and they are not even in Norway, or in Denmark, or Iceland? And they enjoy them, and they sympathize with the characters, and they feel identified with their tribulations, and with their efforts, and with their heroic deeds, and all that. We're not even in a time where you need to go out there with your axe, hacking and slashing your way through life. Yet there are people that identify with these characters, that identify with the gods, that relate to the stories, to the folklore, and you don't need them to be just like those people depicted there. If you wouldn't change any of the mythologies from the past, then I don't see any reason why you would change the American myth. Because in the end, it's a myth, and just like the Greek heroes graced stories of great valor, and they were told from generation to generation in the past, the same is happening now with comic books and with superheroes. You do not need to change them. What you need is to tell compelling stories. Do you need to race-swap the characters? No! Because if you did, then you would miss something on the characters. Sure enough, you can have the same values, you can have the same principles, but the reality is that those characters will not be there anymore. I cannot imagine, for instance, seeing an Australian god be played by a Mexican actor just for the sake of diversity, for instance. So we're going to change the characteristics of this character so that it can be more relatable for other people. Grow up! That is not what we want. We want interesting stories. And if you cannot give them to us, then leave them be. There will be other people willing to do it, and we don't need you. Of course, this is only an opinion. You have the last say in the matter. But if you are of a like mind, I ask you to consider not supporting these people within the comic book industry anymore, because they have simply showed they don't care about you. They don't care about your money. They don't care that you want something better than what they are giving you. They want to give you trash all the time. They want indoctrination. That's what they want to do. They want to indoctrinate you and anyone that is not suspicious enough to see that there is something fishy going on there, and they want to do it as fast as they can because they are petty, stupid bastards just like that. And Dan Slott, he's the worst of the worst. This Jabba the Hutt wannabe is what's wrong with the comic book industry. Don't support him if you believe that as well. Until next time, peace out.